So he goes to this executive committee of the board, right? Says this, and the executive committee of the board has this very fancy meeting with me, and they sit me down and they say, Vince, we don't think you'll be very good at fundraising. You like people too much. I swear to you, that's what he said. The board chair said, you like people too much. And I said, I do like people a lot. This could be a problem, right? And they said, you love to talk with people about Jesus. You love to get to know them. You love to spend time with them. You love to do things with them. We're afraid you're never gonna ask them for money. You're just gonna enjoy being with them. He would say to me, Vinny, 2 things you need to be sure of if you're gonna be good at fundraising. You'll never leave money on the table. And when people see you walking down the street, you want them to walk to the other side of the street because they know a fundraising ask is coming. And I was like, man, I'm gonna be really bad at fundraising. I don't want any of those things to be true, right? So I had a good friend of mine who at the time was president of InterVarsity, and I said to him, Jim, I'm gonna be a horrible fundraiser, but I think God's called me to be the president's organization. And he said, have you ever heard of the focus group? They actually said, Vince, you could be a great fundraiser. You like people. You're okay with not always getting every dollar squeezed out of every person and have them running out of the room after you. And I was like, yeah, that's true.
So take money off the table, put money on the table. That's the first rule. Second rule comes to the idea of leaving money on the table. We always want people to ask people something they can say yes to. Not to challenge them to make a big gift, but the idea of saying yes to a potential gift, which sometimes means asking them for less. A few years ago, one of my friends got the chance to ask Tim Tebow for a gift. She was going to get 1 meeting with Tim Tebow. She said, I'm about 70% on my budget. She was a missionary. She said, Tim will make a great donor. I only need to raise another $30,000. He gives away a lot. And I said, so you're going to meet him the first night, you're going to tell him all about you, he's going to hear you, and then you're going to ask him for 30 grand. She goes, yep, that's my plan. I said, well, why don't you ask him for something he can say, he'll say yes to? She said, like what? I was like, like scholarshiping 1 student to go to a weekend camp to hear about Jesus. She's like, that's only $150. I'm like, I know, but let me script it for you. You ask him $30,000, he's gonna send you to the foundation. He's gonna send you to the Tim Tebow Foundation website and ask you to fill out a form. And I can tell you how that's gonna go, right? You ask him for $150 to sponsor 1 student, he's gonna say yes on the spot, and what will you have? She looked at me and said, I don't know what I'll have, $150? And I said, no, you'll have a relationship with Tim Tebow because he's now made his first gift and you'll be able to inform him on the life that was transformed through his $150, which eventually will lead you to the $30,000 gift. There's 3 different ways to ask for a gift. And my experience is that people of all development experience do this exactly backwards, right? We take our donor that we know the best that has been super generous and we ask them for a specific amount, right? And then we take our donor that we barely know, but we know they have a lot of capacity, and we leave it wide open for them, right? So think back to the Tim Tebow story I told you. Like, her inclination was to just ask, I need 100 grand, I'm 30 left, would you make a gift? Like, asking him for a huge gift that was not gonna end well. And here's my principle. Get out of the way of the giver, right? So when there's a donor that's given you so much money over the years, they've blown you away with their generosity, don't come in and ask them if they would give a gift at the top end of the range or a gift of 3 million or 1 million. Say something like this, I've never met a more generous person. You've given $14.2 million to our organization over the years, and I can't believe that you've trusted us, and thank you. We couldn't be here without you. And we need to raise $26 million. And I'm just gonna humbly ask you to pray about what you might be able to give. And my experience is 9 times out of 10, they're gonna come back with a number that's bigger than the number that you would have had the confidence to ask them for, right? So you do that about 10% of the time. About 10% of the time, you get out of the way of the giver. The other 10% of the time, you have a brand new donor that you think would make a great donor, and your goal is to get them to make the first gift. And so go back to the Tim Tebow story and ask them for something you know they're going to say yes to. A small gift that has a big impact. Like when I was the Chief Development Officer for Young Life, we had to raise money for Bibles. For kids who commit their lives to Christ, they need a Bible. I found it very easy to ask a new donor if they would buy a Bible for a new Christian, right? That was a really easy thing. Sending a kid to camp was a little bit more complicated. They needed to understand about camp. But a Bible for a new Christian, would you buy a case of Bibles? Would you buy 100 Bibles? Like, that was so easy to get the first gift. So you want to, 10% of the time, we're asking people for something that's really easy, and the goal is just establishing the relationship, establishing them as a donor. So that's what I want to leave you with, is sort of like, how do I know what to ask people for? I know they have a lot of potential. If you make a commitment to not leave the table, then it's okay to under ask.